to see the real manipulators behind XRP and crypto crashes, you deserve to know the truth or whatever it is. So smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and let's get right into the video from Levi.
Price, liquidity's drying up. TGA refill. I think there's a large part of the U.S. economy that is very illiquid. Capital is scarce right now. But what do I think is going to happen? I continue to believe very fundamentally that the U.S.
So the crypto markets, even when they crash, I feel like a lot of whales price that in. Like there is whales and there's billionaires actually and millionaires sharing us this type of info for free. A lot of what's happening behind the scenes, again, is very much predicted. Just like when XRP had a huge lawsuit, there was a lot of dumps, and a lot of whales bought. This is the same thing that's happening. Why are institutions buying, but retail is selling? It's a very important question you have to ask yourself.
Government and the Federal Reserve are acting in a way of survival. They are on their deathbed, and there are a few ways out. Nuclear war, that's uninvestable. We're all gone. Or the exit valve is the US dollar.
You guys need to listen up right now, because if you...
So the US dollar, why is the US dollar crashing? I feel like there's a lot more competition, just like crypto coins basically. And this is what we're seeing right now. It's just lots of money in the next 10 years changing hands, potentially, in my opinion, from retail investors to institutions. A lot of institutions are doing exactly that.
Ready to skyrocket, and you're going to start to understand who the true manipulators of the market really are. It's not really BlackRock, it's not really anyone else, it's the actual Fed. And there's many reasons why I want to abolish the Fed, but we're going to be diving deeper into that later in this video once we really get to the core of what's happening and what you guys can do about it. So make sure you smash that like button so everyone in the XRP army sees this important video, and let's get into it.
The United States is not cutting rates for jobs or for inflation. They are cutting rates to keep the U.S. Treasury alive, to keep the U.S. government alive, to keep the U.S. empire alive.
And it is going to be alive. It's still alive. Like a lot of people are saying it's going to crash. I don't think so. I think it is going to be very strong, but I think there's going to be moments where it's super much more weaker.
The cost of that survival is all of you. I'm going to say that again. The cost of their survival is you listening to this show. You, your life, the things you can acquire, the family you want to have, the house you dream of living in. That is the sacrifice and the expense of keeping this empire chugging along. And so think through the framing of this rant as about survival, understanding the task at hand by the powers that be and who they are shortcutting to get where they need to go. First chapter for us, I call the liquidity machine. So going into the show, everyone's like, Jack. I thought Bitcoin only goes up. Bitcoin's down 2.5%.
So yeah, same with XRP. This scenario applies just the same with XRP.
Which, by the way, come on, chill out. 2.5% is nothing in the grand scheme of things. But yes, Bitcoin took a dip. And I wanted to focus on, I actually think that this dip is very healthy. I'm very excited by this dip. I think this dip is good news. And I want to explain why and just the general trend of what's happening if we zoom out. So this tweet from Arthur Hayes, TGA refill almost done. Target is 850 billion. With this liquidity drain complete, up only can resume. Okay, let's understand what's going on here. So the TGA, that stands for the Treasury General's account. So what Arthur is saying is the Treasury General's account refill is almost done. Think of the Treasury General's account like what it sounds like. It's the it's the checking account of the U.S. government. The U.S. government's checking account sometimes needs to be refilled. How do they refill their checking account? How do they refill their bucket of cash? Well, they sell bonds.
Yeah, okay, that's a good thing. But what will that do with XRP? That's my question.
Which is a way of borrowing money from the market. And so when the Treasury does that, what Arthur is claiming is they're draining liquidity out of the system because a lot of the capital that is in Bitcoin, that is in assets, that is floating around in the economy, then goes to finance the government by buying bonds. Does that make sense? And so every so often, the United States government needs to refill their checking account. And he ends his tweet by saying, once that's done, we can continue to go higher.
So does that mean that the market has just dipped a bit because of exactly that reason? So it's totally normal for this market crash?
What does he mean by that? He means we're going to continue to go higher because once the Treasury has their checking account full, they go and spend that money into the real economy. One of the biggest spenders in the economy is the U.S. government itself. And
So has it put its spending on pause?
that capital finds its way into Bitcoin, into real estate, into the stock market, into gold, into the economy. And so the Treasury general account is being refilled. That will suck liquidity out of the system. And I think why this excites me so much is Bitcoin continues to be the best expression of fiat liquidity, the best pulse, the best index, the best heartbeat as to how healthy the system is, where the liquidity is, all the way to the Treasury literally refilling its checking account, its money bucket. Just so you guys know, I think that there are serious liquidity issues within the market. We are living in two economies, as I've been saying on this show.
I don't think there was any issues with liquidity right now, at least in general. There wasn't that much of an issue, at least that I'm aware of. I mean, everyone is net positive, right? So who knows?
There is the ultra wealthy, and then there is everybody else. There are scarce desirable asset holders, and then there is everybody else. And we'll get into that in detail later in the episode. But the everybody else continues to struggle. The Treasury is draining liquidity right now. And I think Bitcoin is reacting to that. And as a Bitcoin holder, that's what you want. You do not want Bitcoin to be like the S&P 500, to be collecting a bunch of passive flow.
So XRP is like in cycles, right? That's what makes sense.
That backs the Treasury market with its bullshit 10% up every single year. That's basically more or less reflecting the increase in M2 money supply. You want Bitcoin to be the escape valve, the exit door, the pure reflection of the devil in the mirror.
I tend to believe that that is actually XRP, which is the solution. And with that being said, I want to bring a quick word from today's video sponsor. Listen.
So yeah, it kind of makes sense. What's happening here is that XRP is entering basically a cycle phase where people keep it for the long term, right? So that's the real deal here. They're going for the long-term brand in a sense. And they don't want to grow the same way. They grow in cycles, not in, just a small pump or just like a waves or just constantly, but it grows in pumps. So unlike stocks, it does something completely different.
And take a look at the bigger picture. So I pulled up this tweet last episode. I wanted to resurface it. So it reads, in the month of August, the U.S. government collected $344 billion. Now, that is from tariffs. So that is income the United States is generating, revenue the United States is generating, new revenue from this tariff program. Good for them. Just one problem. They spent $689 billion. So that is a $345 billion with a B, $billion deficit in 1 month. If you were to annualize that, take that $345 billion, you multiply it by 12, you're well over, $3 trillion of deficit spending in a year. Incredibly unsustainable. Why do I want to resurface this? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, in September 2025, U.S. individual income tax payments for fiscal year have increased by 12% year over year, meaning the U.S. growth in the income that they take from all of us in taxes, the theft that they take from us via taxes. I just had a massive IRS payment. So the theft, the property theft that they are taking from us in the form of taxes grew 12% year over year. Another interesting stat is the U.S. money supply has grown about 5% year over year.
So that's actually good. If the U.S. money supply grows, it usually means that the markets are going up for that fact. So again, this is delayed and everything points towards December.
Money supply is up 5%. Tax receipts are up 12%. How the hell is the deficit higher? Guys, that would be the equivalent if you got a 12% raise, but your credit card bill went up anyway. If you're bringing in more income, if you are printing more money, the deficit is supposed to come down. Despite 12% year-over-year tax receipts, despite 5% year-over-year U.S. money growth, despite tariffs, which brought in over $300 billion in a month, our deficits grew. Our deficits grew.
So I hope this makes things abundantly clear to you that the U.S. government has a massive spending problem. I mean,
it just like cycles really, right? So with the cycles, you have good cycles and bad cycles. And now we're really waiting for the U.S. to do its thing. Could it be I was wrong and it's going to be, September? Instead of September, it's going to be, for example, December? Yeah. We cannot predict when it will happen, but it is a positive thought. There is another thing that made me really happy. So